I guess we can start, and everybody who joins will just continue to the session. So, welcome everyone. My name is Nikolay Shchetikhin, and I'm senior project manager at the company called MTech Systems. I'm implementing software for poultry farms um, and generally in agriculture sector. So, you will hear quite a lot about chickens and IT today. So what I'm trying to do today just to uncover base building blocks for the poultry in terms of IT. What IT components are used in poultry and what industry demanding these days. Um, I've been in this business for quite some time, and at this point, I don't really know if I'm a chicken guy in IT or IT guy in poultry. So, just a little bit about myself. Like I said, I'm doing implementations of the projects and the software in agriculture sector and specifically in poultry. Been doing this for more than 12 years, and I came from a poultry industry before I came into the IT, and in both places, I just came accidentally, more or less. But I stuck to it, and like we say in poultry, once you deal with the chickens, you will ever deal with the chickens. So, like I said, we'll try to talk about IT mostly, but there are plenty of examples that I will give. They are from chicken industry, but many things also can be applicable to all other industries, whether it's agriculture, production, or generally IT development and things like that. Um, this platform is mostly for developers, so we'll focus on the IT things. And yeah, if you'll have some questions during the presentation, feel free to put them in the QA section, and we'll have a QA block at the end of the presentation, and I'll try to answer as many questions as possible. All right. So, like I said, we'll talk about chickens, and we'll talk about IT, and this is basically what is the plan for today. What I'm going to uncover. So we'll start with the basis. We'll discuss why IT is so important these days in agriculture and in poultry, and then we'll talk about main blocks that are associated with IT, such as data analytics, development, project management, and network and security. So why IT and why it is playing such a big role these days? As you know, many industries these days are experiencing quite a lot of difficulties, and agriculture and poultry is not exclusion, right? Because if you look at the news, there are always some kind of issues going on in the world, and they all affecting all kinds of industries. And one of the big things, of course, the cost of raw materials. This one is affecting agriculture generally quite big because of if we look at the cost of production, especially for the chickens, 70% of the cost is feed. And feed, of course, consists of different raw materials like soy, corn, or wheat, and all kinds of different minerals and vitamins. So all those things are getting higher and higher in price, and that affects the industry. And of course, with higher prices for the raw materials, we getting smaller margins. If we look historically, poultry was one of the highest margin and most profitable businesses you could do in agriculture, because turnaround for especially for the broilers is quite quick, so you can get your money back quite fast. But now those margins are getting smaller and smaller, so companies would need to change the way they produce. They would need to make sure that they produce smarter, they use their resources smarter. and of course they would optimize what they have and what they do. One of the big things also, a problem is staff, because especially after COVID, many workers came back to their places or just changed the industry altogether. So, and also in agriculture, historically, again, it was hard to get um, qualified people and lots of good people in the industry, because when you think about agriculture and poultry and any kind of farming, you think about something not so appealing, right? So that's why people also don't go into agriculture. And then of course there are all kinds of disease that are happening in the industry, and also supply chain, right? Again, I mentioned COVID, when that affected stuff, but it also affected all the supply chain. It also contributed to the raw material prices are going up. And also in general, supply chain in the poultry is quite large, from breeders to hatcheries to broilers, including feed mills, processing plants. So all of those things, they got a little bit messed up once COVID happened, and we're still recovering. And also all kinds of other things are affecting to it, especially market changes, climate changes. Everything affects that. So how does IT really help with all that? Well, IT being a tool, it helps with some of those things. Of course, it cannot solve the the cost of production or staffing or disease issues, but being a tool, it contributes to help if you use technology in a smart way. Right. So now let's talk a little bit about what we had before, because like I said, I'm going to talk more about IT, right? And if we look about IT in poultry, for example, 10 years ago, um, all the IT jobs in the industry, they were around network, user support, and some database support. So if you think about IT specialist back then, it was somebody who could help you to plug in your mouse into your computer or change the cartridge in the printer. But now it is very much different, because when we're talking about technology these days, we always think about some databases, artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, in quite a lot of products and coding. And even like if we look in our daily life, we're dealing with all kinds of applications. Everybody has a computer. And so why, for example, we, as for example, just a household person, I'm getting all kinds of benefits from the technology. Like I have a smart home, or I have a smartwatch, I have a smartphone. So everything is so smart. Why chickens and the chicken industry cannot get benefits from the same technology, right? So this is where we come to a point where we need to use technology very smartly, and we need to gain the speed at which we adopt. Because again, if I try to remember those days when I just started in the industry, and we discussed different projects with poultry companies, it was really hard to sell the idea that you need to spend money on some kind of application that will give you the same thing more or less than like Excel spreadsheet or 10 people in the accounting department. But now this mentality is shifting, right? It's proven that implementation of software in this industry is giving good results. You can be more profitable, you can be more efficient, you can also gain competitive advantages, you can be the leader, you can prove that your production is, for example, organic or antibiotic free, and so on and so forth. So, and all of that is because we use the latest technology. So now let's start talking about those technologies in particular. So, and the first one I want to talk about is data analytics or data science. So this is a big block now, and it is kind of fluid, right? So again, if we look back and when dashboards was just a buzzword everywhere and everybody started doing those dashboards, it was all over the place. And now some companies are saying that dashboards are dead. So it looks like it didn't work out, but not really, because dashboard is just the tip of the iceberg. Because we talk, dashboard is just a tool that shows what data can tell, right? And it's really important to connect data properly. It is important to analyze data properly, but not everybody can do it, right? So if you just look at the data set, it's just the data. It doesn't tell a story. That's why people that deal with the data, they're called data scientists. So they have this big mass of data. Sometimes it's structured, sometimes it's not structured, sometimes it's sitting in the different silos. And their job to make sure that they can link all that data, because right now technology is implemented everywhere. So if we look at the modern farm, it's not just like a wooden shed. It has air conditioning, it has air filtration, it has proper ventilation, it has lights, it's fully climate controlled. Then you have all kinds of sensors for the temperature, humidity, CO2, and so on. So it's packed with sensors, right? But then you also have all kinds of other data that is collected on a daily basis, weights, feed consumption, mortalities, everything. Then you have financial data on top of it. Then you can do comparison, benchmarking, all of that. So it's lots and lots of data. And imagine we're having millions of chickens and thousands of poultry houses. So it is very important to get all this data together. Right? That's why data scientists are very important these days, and they are in high demand in the industry. Because making a pretty dashboard is one thing, but can that dashboard really tell what's the reason or what we're going to do with this data, or with this problem, or with this information? This is where we go into um, some different types of analytics that exist. And everyone who deals with data analytics, they know all of those types by heart. But just to give you a couple of examples of what are the difference, descriptive analytics, well, based on the name, it describes what happens. Okay, so what is our 7-day mortality on the broiler farm? Then diagnostic analytics tells us so why there is a high percent mortality on our farms. Predictive tells us, okay, so we're placing today some birds. What is the chance that we'll have high 7-day mortality at that farm? And prescriptive analytics is tell us, okay, so what we need to do, or what kind of bird we need to place, or what kind of conditions we need to create in order to have a low chance of 7-day mortality, or how do we reduce that 7-day mortality? So this is the difference, right? And this prescriptive analytics is really tricky with live production, with live animals, because it's not a machine that you can set up to produce at certain speed and just then check results periodically. No, you need to have a constant control and connect with those birds in order to make sure that they grow the way they suppose, they eat, they drink, and so on. So prescriptive analytics is the future, and I think it will come at certain level, of course, but I don't think it will fully replace a person. And again, like I said, any software, any technology is a tool that helps to get better results, to get uh, better KPIs and things like that. But when I talk about KPIs for the poultry and results and performance, it's not only purely something that you can measure in numbers like weight or money. It's also sustainability. It's also welfare. So all of those things, sometimes it's not really easy to measure, but they're also a part of the performance. All right. So now let's move on and let's talk about the development, right? Because we talk about data, we talk about sensors, analytics, linking all the data, but usually all the data comes from different systems, right? And one of the key benefits of technology is that now we can take out the silos and put all the data together. So data analyst or data scientist can work on it, can make sure that we get the story out of the data. But how do we build those systems? How do we connect those systems? That's the task of a development, right? So, and I'm not saying a developer, but development in general, because it involves product owners and project managers and the end users as well, and developers themselves, QA. So it's a big block of the IT. And sometimes these days there are like big IT departments in the poultry companies, especially big companies that can afford that. They also think, okay, so if we have a big IT department and we have such a specialized processes, maybe we should develop a solution ourselves instead of buying something, or we can get a platform and then we can customize it to do what we need to do. And again, this is a big question in the industry, and it's I think it's always been, and it's probably the same in any other industry, like in car manufacturing or chocolate factories. They also think, okay, so why don't we develop ourselves? But again, there's a pros and cons, and I just wanted to highlight those, that if you develop a solution yourself, such a specialized solution yourself, of course, you get a much greater control over the process, over the final product. You get a much deeper understanding of the business, and you'll have a deeper understanding of the product. So it will do exactly what you need, and you know it beforehand. And then, of course, it helps to bring the innovation culture into the company. When you develop something yourself, especially with the end users, they gain that trust in the product, and it's easier to adopt that product in the company. But then, of course, at the same time, it can be really costly and time consuming, because you need to gather all the information, you need to build the process of development, you need to start developing, you need to start delivering, testing, and so on. So this can be a very long journey. And also, if you focused on something, then yeah, you can keep up with the latest tech. But usually that's not the case, because IT departments, they usually stretch. They do multiple things at the same time. So it will be really hard to keep up with the latest tech. What is the latest framework? What is the latest technology? What kind of protocols should we use? What kind of add-ons and language we need to code in, things like that. And also with developing internally, you don't have access to this external expertise and best practices that many companies bringing with their product and with their services and with their consulting. And of course, if you develop something, and right now, again, everything is getting bigger, right? So big companies will acquire smaller companies, and it's the same in the IT or in the poultry, right? So you would need to scale your product. And especially if you go international and you buy a farm or you buy a processing plant somewhere abroad, can you make sure that your product that you're developing now will work the same way everywhere? Well, again, this is a hard task. But again, at the end of the day, it's always boils down to what is your resource capabilities, what's your budget, and what you want to do. but of course, something that you produce, you want to go make good and fast will not be cheap, right? So if you want good and cheap, it will not be fast, and so on. So it's always a balance. Sometimes you better off buying a product off the shelf, or sometimes you better develop it on your own. Again, this is a big decision, and many companies are going both ways. Some of the products can be developed internally, and some of the products can be acquired. All right. So now we talked about the data. We talked about who will develop the product. So who will implement all that? Because right now, those tools are very specialized. It's not like an app that you can download on your phone and you ready to roll. No, those are very specialized. Therefore, they has to be implemented. And especially if you develop yourself, you would need to gather all the specifications from the end user. So you'll need to prepare documentation. You will need to address the documentation with the product team. Then product team will work with the developer. So if we look at the past, project management in the poultry industry didn't exist pretty much 10 years ago. Maybe some companies did, like PMOs and project managers, but usually poultry companies are not project oriented. Yes, they do quite a lot of like construction projects, but that's not exactly the same as an IT project because it's completely different business flow and completely different approach, right? So, and whenever we talk about the project management, of course, project manager would need to make sure that the product that is delivered it can integrate with all other tools. Because if we have very good tools, but if we have silos, then we cannot really do anything because data scientists will not be able to connect those pieces together, and they always will be telling just a part of the story. Then very important is to look at the training because that's essential when we talk about adoption. If there is no adoption of the product, then this product is useless because you can spend all the money, time, and effort gathering or developing the product, but then users will just say, you know what, we're not going to use it, so we don't like it. So that's the worst situation to be in. So training is super important, and I think the job of the project manager is a continuation of the sale process because project manager, whether it's internal or external consultant, they should continue selling to the end user. Then again, scalability, I already mentioned it from the development standpoint, but if we're talking about scalability of the ready product, then it's also important to talk to all kinds of business users and business divisions to make sure that the product can be implemented and trained and adopted at different regions and at different departments. And one other important thing again that helps with the adoption is customization. If your product cannot be customized at all, most likely there will be more obstacles to implement it. Even off the shelf and ready to go products, they should have some kind of customization, whether it's a user field, some calculated formulas or reports or something like that that would make it really custom and make it really personal to the users. And then implementation partner, I think that's also quite a big one, especially if you go and buy a product in the market and somebody else externally would need to implement it, whether it's like a large consultancy firm or it's a small local supplier. It should be a good and reliable implementation partner because it's like with the construction. If you don't have a good partner, you will not be able to build a good building, right? If there is a weak link somewhere, then the chain will break. So that's very important. All right, so now let's talk about the security, because again, 10 years ago, IT security was not much of an issue. Yeah, we had viruses and things like that, but it was not that critical. Right now, companies are hiring whole security departments, not just the specialist departments that would take care of everything that is related to the security. And as you know, many companies are providing different trainings, and those I strongly recommend to uh, use those trainings wisely, because it's not just a waste of time. Quite a lot of important information delivered there, and based on all the studies show that the weakest link in the security of IT security is always a person. Right now, it's really hard to get um, a password like the hack. So the hackers, they don't hack in, they log in, because they able to obtain your password or your login information. So that's super important. And here, the risks are very, very high for the poultry industry. And sometimes, if I follow all the kinds of poultry news, and you always hear that, oh, this company got hacked, that company got hacked, and the risks are high, um, because the security is big problem, because you can get your data lost, or you can get your data destroyed. You can also have all kinds of reputational risks, and it's sometimes it's really hard to recover. So security is also a big thing now in poultry. And like I said, the data is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? We have data from sensors, financial data, all kinds of dashboards and things like that. So if all of that is leaked, that's a big problem. And then if that's got frozen, that's another big problem. And if your equipment and your processes are linked to those systems, and you cannot operate your business, that's another huge problem. So, and we all know that many companies these days, they go and implement products in the cloud, right? So will cloud be safer? Because sometimes that's a big question that you want to ask yourself. Okay, so should I keep all of my things on premise, or should we move into the cloud? Well, again, this is this big decision that you need to make, but from the looks of it, many things are going into the cloud. Like all of the banking apps are in the cloud. All of the, for example, big ERP systems are going into the cloud. So, and cloud computing provides quite a lot of benefits, and from the security standpoint as well, because IT provider or security provider will do quite a lot of heavy lifting. So they will have all the infrastructure set up, they will have all the protocols in place, and they most likely will be in partnership with some big reliable partner. They will have all kind of compliance and certificates that ensure that they can be trusted, and of course, all that security can be easily scalable to what you need. Do you need two-factor authentication? Here we go. Do you want encryption? Here you go. Do you want something else? Here you go. So all of that easily accessible. All right. So we are kind of running out of time, so I'll just move on to the next step, and just we'll do a little wrap up, and then we can look at the Q&A section. So just to finish this talk, I want to underline that the poultry industry, is developing quite rapidly, and technology is contributing to that development, because it's not only about, like I said, it's not only about performance, it's also about reliability, it's also about transparency, because when I buy a product, in a supermarket, I want to make sure and I want to know that this product was produced at the high standard. Maybe I want it to be local, maybe I want it to be organic, maybe I want to make sure that that product was produced with high welfare standards. Whatever that is, I just want to make sure that it's good, right? And technology allows companies to provide that information, because all of the traceability, transparency, and things like that. So it's not only for the benefit of IT companies or production companies, it's also for the benefit of the end user and end consumer, like you and me, right? But also, couple important things is that uh, many more young people are coming into the poultry industry, which I especially like, because poultry industry is becoming more attractive because of all this high tech, because of the sensors, machine learning, all of the technology attracts young people, and that's good because we need those people in the industry. And also it opens up quite a big market for IT specialists, because companies are constantly hiring people to be in their IT department. And of course, this creates mutual help and this kind of bond between poultry and IT, because poultry can be more effective, produce more, produce better product, because of the benefits that IT brings. And also, IT is developing because we have more ways to apply technologies, something that we even haven't thought about 5, 10 years ago, with all the modern things like machine vision or machine learning. All of those things can do magic, right? Something that we couldn't do before. So I guess that's the end of my talk. If you guys have any questions, please pop them in the QA, and I will be able to see them and answer. You're welcome, Tiago. All right, cool. If there are no questions, just I can wrap this up. Thanks everyone for joining this talk. If you want to connect with me, please follow me on social media, and we will be able to talk offline. If you want more sessions like this, also let me know, and I will be able to organize something else for everyone. All right, thanks everyone, and have a good day.